mechanic that we've created in less than an hour. So if you guys want to follow along, you're more than welcome to. Can I get a sense of if how many people have the engine installed and are going to be following along today?
Students, kindly respond. How many of you have installed your? I think you're getting a chat reply. There are some people are responding in chat, I think.
Oh, okay. Let me just see if I can open the chat here.
At least we request everyone to confirm that in chat at least. How many of you installed? If you are saying no, also just put no. I'm not installed.
Yeah, it's
So
fine.
I
Even
think
if you haven't, this is just going to dictate how slow or fast I can go through the thing. Because if you guys don't have it installed, then you might have more questions towards the end. If you have it installed and are following along, you might have more questions while we go through. Okay, so I can see 2 people have installed it. So if you guys have version 4.25, this should work pretty. I mean, no matter what version you have, this will work in any case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and start building everything from scratch. So let me just open up. Okay, so I'm just going to start off by launching the newest version of the Unreal Engine 4.25. And I'm going to choose games here. And I'm going to choose third person. And I'm going to choose blueprint, maximum quality, ray tracing disabled, desktop, and console. And I'm going to choose starter content so that we can get some of that fire effect that we saw in the game. That's mostly the only thing we'll use from the starter content. I'm just going to name this James Live Demo. Okay, so now we have a blank third person template. Now there's nothing going on in this right now except for your player being able to just move around and jump. So we're going to create all that stuff that we saw, the logic and the assets real time. So we're just going to start by creating a new folder by right clicking in the contents folder and create a new folder and name it um, demo. Okay. So now that we have our gameplay in mind, what we want to do. So first thing we're going to do is uh, create the coins and put logic for the game to recognize how many coins there are in the game and how we can pick these coins up. So the first thing we're going to do is go to right click in the empty space in the folder and create a blueprint class. We're going to choose actor and this is going to be called BP underscore coin. And we're going to open it up and it's going to be blank. It's got nothing in it. First thing we're going to do is add a static mesh. So this static mesh is going to be a representation of the coin. And we're going to choose within the static mesh, assign it a cylinder. You can see it's pretty big right now. So we just on the key with the cylinder selected on the keyboard, I'm pressing R to get the scale tool. You can press E to get the rotation tool. So I'm going to rotate it this way, 90 degrees. I'm going to use the scale tool, kind of make it flatter. So I can see it's not giving me a good value here. This is because at the top right, there are some snaps assigned to it. So this is for the scale and it's scaling at 0.25. So we want it to be kind of not snap to anything. So instead of using the snap, I can also just do this and give me more freedom. Or alternatively, on the right hand side, I can also just type the value I want. So I know the value I want is 0.05. So I'm going to do that. And I also want this, as you can see, it's halfway through the ground right now. That's because the location of the coin is 000. So I'm just going to lift this up so that we can see it a little bit better. And maybe it's a little too big. So I'm going to change the size of it to maybe 0.5, 0.5. Yeah, this seems better. And right now it has this default gray material. So let's go back to our content browser and make a material for the coin. So the first thing we're going to do is right click, create material. Okay. Rohan is asking, can you show it again? Can you tell me what you want to what you want me to explain again? I think I might be going a little too fast. So if you can just tell me what you've missed, I can go back. Okay, from the static mesh. Okay. So we're going to do add component here and choose static mesh. And when you click on it, it'll drop one down here for you. And then you click on the static mesh. And here it's going to be empty because it just knows that it has to hold some static mesh. It doesn't know which mesh. So we have to tell it which mesh. So we're going to find the cylinder here. This is going to be empty for you like this. We're going to find cylinder. We want the second one. Or maybe the third one. Yeah, it's the third one. So now that you've chosen the cylinder and you've got the static mesh, and I've also moved it up a little bit by clicking on it and then dragging it up by pressing W. I'm going to right click on this empty space and create that material we were talking about. I'm going to name this M_coin so that I know it's the material of the coin. I'm going to open this up. And this is showing me a blank screen right now. So I want the coin to be golden color. So I'm just going to press 3 on my keyboard and click with my left mouse. And that should pop this up. Alternatively, you can also right click and search for it by doing constant 3 vector. It's going to pop up the same thing. And over here, I'm just going to go in and choose a yellow color. Yellow color I like. Yep, this seems okay. And I'm going to connect this to base color. And then I'm going to drag out of this metallic option and type constant so that I get a constant number 1. So metallic decides how metallic this material is going to look. So for us, we want it to be metallic. So we're going to press it 1. We're going to give it. So it gives us a nice metallic looking shine to it. And the other thing we want to do is we're going to take this and copy and paste it. You can press Control W once you've selected something to duplicate it. You can also press Control C, Control V, which is your old copy paste method. Control W is just faster. We're going to take that and put it into our roughness. And we don't want it to be fully rough. You can see now it's lost its metallicness. So we want to choose a value which is somewhere in the middle. So like 0.25 should be good. And now you can see it's looking more like a golden ball. So this is a preview of the material we're using. Okay, so we're going to apply this and save this material. And then we're going to go and find this material by clicking on this browse button. It will take you directly to where the material is saved. If I just press browse on the top left, I can see this coin now. Now with this material selected here, I'm going to go back to my coin that we were setting up before, the blueprint. And over here, you can see the static mesh cylinder doesn't have a material assigned to it. It says default material. Now we want to assign the coin material. So we can search for the coin material over here by pressing coin, and it should show up M coin. So I'm going to select that. And as you can see, I have this shiny coin. So as of now, the coin is not doing anything. So if I was to bring this coin into the world, so you can see that the coin exists, but it's not rotating. It's not doing anything as of now. So what if we wanted to continuously rotate like this helper tool is rotating? So we're going to open up this coin again. And in this component, we're just going to search for rotating movement. And we're going to add this component to it. So what this component is going to do is add itself to this blueprint and tell it that whatever is in this blueprint is going to follow this rotating movement. And in this rotating movement, you have some options that over here that you can edit to make it go faster or slower. We're not going to look into that right now. I mean, you can see over here that the rotation rate is telling you 180. We can change this to make it faster or slower. But for our purposes right now, 180 is fine. Now that we've added this rotating movement, we're just going to press compile and save. And now when you come into this and you press play or you press simulate or press play, you'll see that it's rotating, right? You don't see it rotating here, but as soon as you press simulate, you'll see it rotating. Or if you were to press play, you'll see it rotating. So the difference between play and simulate is when you press play, you actually take control of this player. But if you do simulate, you can kind of view the world, how it's going to be in gameplay mode, but without having to control a player. So if I do simulate, I can just move around the world in its normal state, but without having to control the player. So this is really good to go around and inspect your level. Okay, so now that we have our coin set up, let's add simple functionality to the player to keep a track of how many coins he has picked up. So for that, I'm going to click on the player, right click on him and browse to asset. It's going to bring me to the third person character. I'm going to open this up. So it already has some code within it. So let's take a look at this code and see what it's doing. So this is showing me gamepad input. So if I was to have a gamepad, I could move around with the gamepad controls set up here. This is the mouse input. This is showing me the jump input, and this is showing me the touch input. So we don't have to worry about most of this because all of this is already set up for us. So we can move around with the, when we press play, we can move around with the WASD keys on the keyboard and move around with the mouse. So this is nicely set up for us, so we don't have to worry about this. However, what we do need to do is keep a track of the coins. So over here within our character, we're going to tell it to keep a track of the coins, and we're going to do that by making the coins a variable. So down here in the variables tab, we're going to click variable and we're going to name it coins collected. Now you can see that this coins collected is red. Red means it's a Boolean. A Boolean is a type of variable that is either yes or no, true or false, 1 or 0. That's not what we want. We don't want to know if we have collected one coin or not. We want to keep a track of how many coins we collected. So instead of choosing this variable type as a Boolean, we're going to choose it as an integer. So an integer is, as you know, just a bunch of numbers without decimals. So this is going to help us keep a track of how many coins we have. But we also need to know how many coins there are totally in the game, because we need to be able to tell when the game is finished, when someone has completely collected all the coins. So we're going to take the same coins collected and duplicate it. And this time we're going to name this total coins. So now we have two items here, coins collected and total coins. Now we also want to keep a track of our health. Like we were in the game earlier, we were moving through the fire and we were losing some health. So we're going to keep another variable. We're going to duplicate this and call it health. Now, as you see, if I click on this on the right, it doesn't have a value assigned to it right now. It says, please compile the blueprint. So if I compile it, now it's showing me the default value for coins collected is 0. Total coins is also 0. and my health is also 0. So now we can start. So say we want our maximum health of the player when he starts to be 100. So I'm going to name this 100. And currently we don't have a number of total coins because we haven't put that many coins in the world. We only put one. So we want some way to get how many coins there are in the world. So for that, we're going to create a small function. We're going to add a custom event. This custom event is basically just a function, and we're going to name it get total coins. What we're going to do is we're going to ask the player to search the world and see how many coins exist in the world. And the way to do that is we use a node called get actors of class. And here we're going to choose coin. So it's going to go through the world and get how many ever coins there are in the world. And it's going to save it in an index, kind of like an Excel sheet in its memory. And this is the output of the Excel sheet, or it's called an array. So we're going to get that array and we're going to ask the array, how many units do you have in your array? And this is going to spit out how many number of coins we have in total. So we're going now, once we call this function, it's going to ask the world how many coins there are. It's going to return a list of the coins. And we're going to say, okay, how many of these coins exist in the list? And it's going to give us that number. So we're going to take this total coins and I'm just going to drag it into the world and say set total coins. So this is going to set the value. Now I'm going to take the length and attach it to set. And we're going to connect these. So whenever I call this function, it's going to get the coins, get how many numbers of coins there are, and then save that number to the total number of coins. But as of now, we have nothing calling this. So let's get a function that's called event begin play. So this function is fired as soon as the game starts. As soon as you press start, this event will fire. So once this event is fired, we're going to say get total coins. So as soon as the game starts, it's going to go ahead and search the world and get all the coins. So now we have the health value set as 100 that we have set ourselves. Once the game starts, the total coins value will also increase as we put more coins in the world. But coins collected right now remain 0. Okay, now we have some of this logic set up, but how do we tell when we play a game and collect a coin? How do we tell we've collected it or not? So this is where the UI comes in. I'm going to quickly bring in the previous the game that I had built already, just to explain what the UI is. So as you can see, my health, number of coins, all of this is part of the UI. It's basically a canvas which is being projected on top of my screen. And no matter where I look, it's always on top. It doesn't go behind the character or behind the world. It's just attached to the screen. So this is known as a UI or a HUD or a heads up display. So we're going to create that. Okay, so I'm going to go back to our folder for demo right here. I'm going to go to user interface and create a widget blueprint. In this widget blueprint, I'm going to right click and open it up. So this is basically showing me a blank canvas. This is basically what is going to be shown on the screen when I activate it. So for right now, let's just bring in some simple text. I'm going to take this text and name it coins and keep it at the bottom here. Next thing I'm going to do is create another text box. And I'm going to name this as, I'm going to put the text in here as 0. I'm going to duplicate this again, get another one, 0. And lastly, a third one, but this time, instead of using the 0, I'm going to just put in a slash. Now, as you can see, I've used 3 different ones. the reason for is that 1 is going to be the number of total coins. This is going to be how many coins we have currently. And this is just a separator between the two. Okay. So for now, we want to get the total number of coins. So the first 0, okay, I'm just going to tighten things up a little bit here so that it's easier for us to select. Yeah. So the first 0 that we have, you can see it says text 0 here. I'm going to change the name of this text up here and name it collected coins. Okay. So I've used this as collected coins. This is going to be total coins. Total coins. So now I have collected coins and total coins. Okay. So this new, we had created this. This is the widget blueprint we're working in. It's called new widget blueprint right now. We're going to change the name of it. We're going to change the name of the blueprint to HUD. So this is our heads up display. We're changing the name so that we can recount it later. So the way we're going to do that is on event begin play. Just 1 second. We're going to create a widget. So the widget is that same thing we created before. Only this time we have to attach it to our player. So we're going to do this in our third person character that we were doing before. We're going to attach it to our player and we're going to say HUD. We're going to choose HUD. And it's asking me who the owning player is. So we're just going to do get player controller and attach this to here. So that it knows that the player that we are controlling is the person who gets the HUD. And the last thing we need to do is add to player screen. And I'm going to do compile. Now when I do play, you can see the coins 0 of 0 is showing up at the bottom. But still, I'm still not able to collect the coins. Nothing is happening. So the first thing we're going to do is go back into the coin, select our static mesh, and make sure collision is turned off. So collision presets, we're going to search for it in our click on static mesh in our details panel on the right. Choose the collision preset and choose no collision. Because we don't want the player to collide through it. We kind of want the player to collect the coin and the coin to disappear. And the next thing we're going to do is within the coin, we're going to add a sphere collision. And we're going to select this guy and just drag it to the default scene root so that we can attach it there. Okay, I'm just going to get all the settings back to default so that we have a sphere at the bottom. So this sphere is going to dictate how close the player needs to be to pick up the coin. So I'm going to just put this over the coin and make it slightly bigger, like maybe this big. So the idea is that when the player enters this sphere, he can pick up the coin. So how do we do that? So with this, now that we're done with the viewport, we're going to click on the event graph. This is where the coding goes into for the coin. So for the coin, now we know that the sphere is acting as the collider or the trigger to pick up the coin. So we're going to click on the sphere, and at the bottom of the details panel, you can see some events. These events are pertaining directly to this sphere. So we're going to choose this on event, on component begin overlap. So it's going to give me a node here. This event is going to fire as soon as something overlaps this sphere. And it has all these different pins. So the only one we really want to work with is this other actor. So we're going to pull a cord out of this other actor and we're going to cast to third person blueprint, third person character. Sorry, this is the one we're working with. This is our player model, our player controller. Sorry, uh, we're casting to this guy so that we can check if it's this person who has come into the coin or not, because it could also be I mean, this is currently we are assuming that only the player who's playing can go through the coin. What if you have artificial intelligence enemies or someone who go through the coins? You don't want them to be able to pick it up. We only want our player to pick it up, and the way we do that is to cast to the third person character to make sure that he is the person who has gone over the coin. So now that we know that he is the person gone over the coin, if it's a success, it will fire from this node. If it fails, and if it's someone else who's overlapped, it will go through this node. So we don't care about what happens if it fails, because we're not using that at all. We only need to care about what happens when when the player goes over the coin. So from this we're going to get coins collected. This is what we had said before. And we're going to add. So we're going to do integer plus integer and add 1. And now that we have this value, so we get how many coins our player currently had. And then we add just 1 to it, so that if he had 0 before, he gets now 1. And once we've got that, we have to set coins collected again. Because before he picks it up, he has 0 coins. But as soon as he picks it up, he now needs to update his coins collected and add 1 to it and get the correct answer. So after 0, it will become 1. After 1, it will become 2. After 2, it will become 3. Okay, so now that we have this, let's see if this works. So I'm just going to add a few coins. Okay. All right. So I'm able to go through the coins, but nothing is happening. My coins are not updating. They're not disappearing either. So let's fix that. So we've now we have everything set up where the coins are existing in the world. They're getting added to the player. They're just not reflecting in our HUD. So how do we make it so that it starts updating our UI? So we're going to choose within our HUD that we had created. We're going to click on this coins collected coins. And at where there's text in context, where we had typed 0, we're just going to click on bind and do create binding. Just going to create some space between the two. So what this bind is going to do is it's constantly going to search for a value and then attach that value and replace that 0 with that new value that it has found. So we're going to use this to get our coins collected from our player. We're going to do get. Sorry. So we're going to get owning player pawn. That's going to tell us that within the widget, who is the pawn that has this widget. And again, we're going to do cast to third person so that we make sure it is the right player that is getting this information. And then we're going to get coins collected. And we're going to add it here. So now what it's going to do is it's constantly going to ask the player how many coins do you have. And whenever it gets the total number of coins, it's going to add to this number. So let's see if it works now. So as you can see, as I go through a coin, it starts adding. Now I have 5 coins. Now I have 6 coins. But now I have a problem where the coin is not disappearing and I'm collecting the same coin twice. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick. We're going to go into the coin. And what we're going to say is, once the coin has been collected and the coin has been set, we are just going to destroy this coin. So that once we've collected the coin, this coin actor will just disappear and we will no longer be able to collect it anymore. So let's see if this works now. Okay, so I can pick up the coin. You can see it's going from 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and all the coins have now disappeared. But as you can see, once we collect the coins, we're not getting an update of how many total coins there are in the world. So remember how in third person we had already set this up to get the total coins? So we already have the value of total coins. It's again not just being shown in the HUD. So we're going to go back to the HUD and get this number, this total coins that you can see up here. And like previously we did, we're going to create a binding, follow the same procedure, get player pawn or get owning player pawn, and cast it to third person character. And this time we're going to get total coins and attach it here. Okay, so let's see what happens when we start moving through this. So now you can see it's already showing me 1 of 4 coins, 2 of 4, 3 of 4, 4 of 4, and they've all disappeared. So now we've set up a simple game logic where we have 4 coins and we're able to collect all 4 coins. The next thing we're going to do is, as you can see, once you finish collecting the coins, nothing is happening. We want the game to kind of stop and say that, okay, you have now won, and the ability to restart the game if you want. So within our HUD, what we're going to do is add another text bubble, a text box, sorry. We're going to name this you win. We're just going to go down to the font and increase the font to say 125 and pull it in the center. Now, if I do this and I press play, you will see that it's constantly showing me you win. But this is not what we want. So what we want to do is we click on this you win. And if you come into behavior and visibility, you can change this to collapsed or hidden. Once you do that, it will no longer show up. So we wanted to show up only once all the coins have been collected. So far we've not made any logic to say how, like, if we've collected all the required coins or not. So within our coin, let's just go quickly and where we set up every time we collect a coin and we set the new coin value. Let's do a simple check to see if our total coins are equal to the coins collected. So I'm going to bring total coins out. I'm going to do get total coins. And I'm going to compare it with this coins collected that we've set newly. So I'm going to do integer. All I've done is type the greater than symbol on the keyboard and it's showing me integer greater to or equal to integer. And I'm going to check for against this total coins. So the idea is that I check how many coins I have and I check if it's equal to the total coins in the world. And if this is equal to or more than the coins in the world, it'll give me a Boolean in the terms of true or false. And I can use this Boolean to branch out. So this Boolean is going to tell me, have I collected all the coins yet or not? So if this coins collected is equal to or greater than total coins and the function gives me a true result, I can start a new event, which I'm going to name, go to my third person. I'm going to start a custom event. And I'm going to name this end game. Okay. I'm going to go back here. So back to the coin. And now I want to reference that end game event that I just created, but that end game only lives in this third person character. So I have to pull out of third person character again and do end game and connect it to true. So what's going to happen is it's going to collect everything. It's going to collect how many coins I have, test against how many total coins there are in the world. And if I have collected all the coins, it's going to call the end game function and then it's going to destroy itself. And by destroy itself, I mean only the coin. So the coin is getting destroyed no matter what. Even if the game ends or doesn't end, that coin is going to get destroyed. Okay. So for my end game, I'm going to just quickly type in some code in some conditions for what happens when the game ends. So when the game ends, I want the player to no longer be able to move. So for me to be able to no longer be able to move, I have to do disable input. So I'm going to disable input. I'm going to find that and connect this to disable input and drag off from the player controller and just get the player controller. So this is going to tell me that my player controller can no longer receive input. I'm going to drag character movement and do disable movement. So what this is going to do is take away the ability for me to do anything once the game is over. So let's see if this works already. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it's still not working. Let's see what's wrong. Okay, I just need to compile this now. It should work now. Let's see. Yeah, as you can see, he's now come to a halt. I'm pressing keys, moving my mouse, but nothing is working. So this is actually the result we want. The other thing we want is that once all of this happens and the end game thing pops up, we want to get our HUD. So I forgot to add a reference to the HUD. So this HUD that we created, we're just going to promote it to a variable. And we do this so that we can reference it later on. I'm going to name this HUD after the created widget. I'm just going to set the variable here so that once I come in here, I can get the HUD. And from the HUD, I can get our winner one. What do we name it? So this uWin text box, I'm going to name this winner. And I'm going to check is variable so that I can access it later, which is what I need to do in this coins phase. So I'm going to do get winner and set visibility and set it to visible. So basically what I've done is that winner thing that we were not seeing before is now going to be shown. Oops. Okay, so let's see if this works now. 1, 2, 3, 4. You win. Now I can no longer move, but I've got this you win condition. Okay, so I think we've covered the first half of what I wanted to do. I'm sure I've gone way too fast and people have not been able to follow. So if you guys have any specific questions, this would be a good time to ask. I'll happily go over most of the stuff again if you need me to.
Any queries, students? No, sir. Okay. You can write it in a chat box also.
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, why did we attach destroy at the end?
So if why did we here?
Yeah. Why cannot we attach before the winner function?
Oh, because if you were to attach it here, this is what you're saying, right? If I was to do this,
Yeah.
if I do this and if the actor gets destroyed, then this will no longer run because the actor is already destroyed. So it doesn't reach this part.
Okay, sir.
Because I'm destroying this coin and all this logic is coming from the coin. So instead, what I have to do is I have to run the other logic, and once all the logic is over, then I can destroy the coin.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so if I put this before, then whatever is after this, it won't run because it'll destroy this blueprint.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I think Afra is also asking something. Afra. Can you show how to destroy?
Sir, can you show how to destroy the coin once again, sir?
Yeah, so we have our coin. Within our coin, what we are doing is we get the on component begin overlap from that sphere where we had done, so that we have an area that is larger than the coin itself. So once the player goes through the coin, we are destroying it at the end. And all I'm doing to destroy it is using this destroy actor node. You can just search for it. Destroy actor. And it'll destroy whatever blueprint this resides in. Was that clear how to destroy the coin, or do you want me to explain
Yes, sir.
how to go about calculating how many coins there are?
No, sir, only this.
Okay, so yeah, if you just do destroy actor, you can see target, it says self. So that means it'll destroy itself. If you wanted to destroy something else, you could also plug in something else. For example, I could also take the third person character and plug it in here, and it'll destroy the third person character. But that's not what we want. We want it to destroy just itself.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sorry, I lost you. I couldn't hear the last part.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Okay, so we now have this simple thing set up where we win. So let's go ahead and just start moving these around a little bit. I'm going to maybe put one up here.
So, sir, what is that white sphere, sir?
Sorry,
What is that white sphere?
white sphere at the bottom. This.
Yeah, sir.
So
Yes,
this is only a visual indicator to show you where the blueprint is, because what can happen is sometimes, for example, this sphere you see here, right? If I press G, which is game mode, I can't see that sphere anymore.
Okay, sir.
So this is basically just an indication of where this blueprint is in the world. So you can find it from far away also.
Okay, sir.
It's just like a pivot point, if you want to call it. It's actually, if you open up the blueprint now, it will be known as the default scene route. So it's only a visual indicator for when you're editing in the engine. Once the game starts, it's not visible.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it's just a simple billboard. Okay, so I've gone ahead and added a few also now and placed them around. I'll try playing it again. Yeah, okay. So now I can see there's 7 coins in the world. I'm just going to roam around and collect them. And you win. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I guess we're going to take a 5-minute break now. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the second part of this tutorial, which is going to be adding the health and the fire, and the health being taken down. As you can see, the health is going down, and once it goes to 0, we're going to get a similar screen to the you won. Instead, it's going to say you lost, and we're going to have a simple button to restart the game. Okay, so I guess we'll be back in 5 minutes by 3:30.
5 minutes. Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Sure.
Perfect. Okay, actually, before we go on break, I can see Rohan Vankade is asking, how can you edit character jump? So the character jump is actually in the character movement. If you click on the character movement, you have all these different options. You can set the speed, the speed at which the player goes, the height at which he can climb steps, the jump Z velocity. So I can change this from 600 to say 300. And this should make me jump much lesser. Now I can only jump half the amount. So again, it's in the third person character. If you open it up, right click on it, edit third person character, click on character movement, and look for character movement walking and jumping. And in the jumping, you can edit it to 300 or whatever you want. 600 is the default, so I'm going to leave it at that. And I will see you guys in 5 minutes. Hi guys, sorry. Hope everyone is back. Okay, at this point, can you guys give me a sense of how you guys are following along? If you guys want me to slow down and go through what we have already done and explain that further, I can do that, or we can continue building more on top. I think I might have gone a little too fast for people to follow, so I'm afraid they might be left behind.
Yeah, sir. Students are giving messages, writing messages that it was too fast.
Yeah. So maybe I'll just slow down and go through what we created again.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to start off by just clicking on the third person character, right clicking on it, edit.
Guys, you can wait for 5 minutes. Sir is rejoining. There is some technical issue. That's why he's rejoining.
Hi guys, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We
Yeah,
can hear.
sorry. Yeah, my electricity has gone. I have some limited power backup.
No issues.
So I'm going to try and run through it quickly. What has probably also happened is since I don't think I have saved, I might have to do it all over again. So this is going to give me a chance to slow down a little bit. Okay. Okay. Yeah, back up and running. Are you able to see my screen, guys?
Yeah, sir, visible.
Okay. I've just loaded up what was previously done. Just checking if it's all working correct.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So it looks like it seemed to have saved what we have done previously. Okay. That is perfect. Okay. So the first few things we did was created these variables by just pressing the plus variable and going into Boolean and selecting integer and naming it coins collected, and then duplicating it and naming it total coins, and doing the same thing for health again. So now we have three variables, each of an integer type, and health we set up as 100. Total coins and collected coins are just going to remain 0. When you first create the variable, they're not going to show any default value. You have to click compile. Once you click compile, it'll show up as 0. And what we want to do is first we want to set up and get the information on how many total coins there are in the world. And for that, we just right click in our event graph and type custom event. And once we got the custom event, we named it get total coins. I'm going to delete this. We did get total coins. And from that, we told that function to now search the world and get all actors of class that are known as BP coin. So it's going to go through the entire world and search for each one of these coins that we have put. And once it gets all of them, it's going to save it in a table format, which is known as an array. And from that array, we ask it how many numbers does it have in that array? How many entries does it have? And we get the length of the entries. So the length gives us a number, which is going to be from 0 to whatever number there is in here. So right now we have 7. So it's going to collect 7 coins and tell us, okay, there are 7 total coins. And we get the total coins into our event graph and press set total coins so that we can set a value to it. And we attach that to the length. So that it gets the length of the total table and adds that to the total coins. So that's what we're doing to save the total coins. The coins collected, we are not handling here at all. We have just set this and left this value here, and this value gets driven or added to every time we step into this coin. So within this coin, if I open it up by right clicking on it and edit BP coin, we have this setup here where it's going and checking who overlapped this sphere. Who is the actor that has gone through this sphere? And if that actor is a third person character, then we ask that character, how many coins have you already collected? And whatever number we get, we add 1 to that. So that if he has 0 coins collected, this is going to be the first coin that he collects. And we're going to set that variable again. So basically we're getting the coins collected, then we add 1 to it, and we say, okay, now that you have added 1, we have to set this coins collected value back. So from 0, we change it to 1. From 1, we would change it to 2, and so on. And the next thing we're doing is we're also checking once the coin has been added to our collection, have we now collected all the coins that exist in the world? So we check that by dragging from the coins collected value and doing a greater than or equal to no function check. And we get that by just dragging off from our integer value and putting in the greater than sign. So it gives me 2 options, either integer is greater than integer or integer is greater than or equal to integer. So we want to try and use the second one. So this is going to check and tell us, okay, if the total coins collected is equal to the total coins in the world, then we are going to get a true value. And that is going to go to this end game function that we created in our third person. So if I double click on this end game, it'll bring me to the function that I've created in our third person character, which is telling it that no longer take input from my keyboard and mouse, and also disable the movement of the player so that the player comes to a standstill. So we go again and collect all the coins. Player came to a standstill. We got the "you win" message. Yeah, that's it. And the last thing we're doing is we're setting the "you win" message to be visible, and then we're destroying the actor, which is the coin. So the coin is also being destroyed even if the total coins collected is less than the total coins that exist in the world. So for example, if you picked up 3 coins and 7 exist in the world, it's still going to go ahead and destroy the current coin that we have collected. So the coin is being destroyed regardless of the game ending or not ending. So that is why we have the destroy coin. I hope everyone's been able to follow so far.
Yes, sir.
Is this pace better, or do you want me to? I can slow down even further. And if you guys have any specific questions, as usual, please feel free to ask.
Students, any doubt? Do you have any doubt till now?
No.
No.
Okay.
You can continue, sir, please.
Okay. So now that we have our coins set up, we have to make it visible into our player viewport. This little HUD down here, we have to make this correlate to the coins. And the simple way to do that is through using binds in our UI. So I'm just going to search for our HUD and open it up. And this text that we had brought in called, and we named it coins, collected coins. We're going to click on it and click on the content and check the bind. Right now we've already get total coins as the bind, but you can do create bind and create a new bind. So we're going to look at the bind we've already created. So we're going to get the player and we're going to cast and see if that player is actually the third person player. And the third person is the same where we've done all the coding and the entry for our movement and stuff, and also for the coin collection. And ask that player, how many coins do you currently have? And whatever answer he gives us is what we're going to put up over here. So that's what this bind function is doing. Every time this number changes in the player control, in the player character, it's going to update it here. That is essentially what the bind is doing. And the total bind, what we've done is get total coins. And the get total coins graph, I'll show you really quickly. Get total coins is also doing the same thing. It's just asking the third person character, have you checked in the world how many total coins there are? And whatever number he returns, the total number of coins are, that's what we get at the corner on this little number here. So that is basically our HUD setup. So we've done our coin setup and now we've done our HUD setup, our basic HUD setup. So our coins is basically is just showing us numbers. So it's showing 4 of 7, 5 of 7, 6 of 7. So the next thing we want to introduce is our health that we had initially put in here. Our health as 100. So let's create another blueprint. Instead of this coin, we're going to put some fire so that every time this person goes over fire, he reduces his own health. So let's create this blueprint by right clicking in our folder and create blueprint class. And we're going to do actor and name it BP underscore fire. We open it up again, it's going to be blank. So the first thing we're going to do is let's look for a particle. So we're going to add a particle system. So this particle system again is just a pointer telling us that there is some particle system here. We haven't added any definition to the particle system, which is this template right here. So we're going to drop this template down and look for something called fire. We're going to find this P fire. This is part of the starter pack, that starter content pack that we had selected when we were first starting the project up. Remember, we had clicked get starter content. This fire is part of that starter content. So we're just going to use this for our purposes right now. I'm going to press W on the particle system so that I can move it up in the world. And I'm going to rotate it so that the fire kind of goes upwards. And I'm going to compile it. And let's bring this fire into the world and see what happens. So you can see the fire has already started. Now, if I press G on my keyboard, it will show me the game mode and everything else will be hidden except for what is visible actually when you're playing the game. So you can see the fire is roaming around. Now I can see that the fire is a little too high. So let me go in and edit this a little bit. I'm going to go into my fire again and bring this down slightly and compile. Yeah, now I can see that the fire is more on the ground. Okay. And I'm going to go back to the fire blueprint. And like we did previously, we're going to bring in a sphere collision. And we're going to move this to our default scene route and attach it, not make it new, but we're just going to attach it. And we're going to get this to be default, the location and rotation so that it comes in the center. And we're just going to increase the size of it. I'm going to move it up a little bit so that it encompasses the fire. So whenever the player now gets into the sphere, he should take damage. This is what we're going to start coding in a bit. So now you can see this red sphere showing me whenever I enter this space, I'm going to incur damage. We haven't set up the damage yet, so we're going to do that next. We're going to go into our event graph. This is again where the coding happens for this blueprint. We're going to choose the sphere and at the pull it down in the details panel again. And like we did previously, we're going to do on component, begin overlap. So when we connect to this, when we overlap this sphere that we've selected, we're going to again check if the person who's overlapped the sphere is the third person character. Okay. And once we get the third person character, we're going to get his health. And we're going to subtract from the health. So we had set the health to 100. So let's subtract, say, 10 from the health. And we're going to set the health. Similar way as we did for our coins. We get the current health, subtract a certain amount from it, and set the new health to the subtracted amount. So if he had 100 and he enters the fire, he's going to incur minus 10 damage and get the new health as 90. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is we need to make some visual representation of the health in our HUD. We have nothing telling us in the HUD that there is a health situation happening in our game. So for our health, let's bring in what is a progress bar. Okay. So when we bring this progress bar in, I'm going to just plonk it in and make it a little big. And I'm going to name this guy health. Oops, if I could spell correctly. Health. Okay. So this progress bar, you can think of it as getting filled over time or getting lessened over time. So if you see the percent here, if I increase it, you can see the bar starting to increase or decrease. So we're going to use this functionality for our health. So when our health is 100, it's going to be like this. When our health is 50, it will be close to this. When it's 25, it will be like this. And when it's 0, it will go to this. So how do we get this to correlate to our health? Here again, we're going to use the same bind we had used before. We're going to create a new one. And we're going to get player pawn or get owning player pawn.
So what this function does?
This get owning player pawn.
Yes, sir.
So it checks who the HUD belongs to. So when you're playing this game, I'm player 1, right?
Yes,
But
sir.
suppose now this is not part of what we're talking about today, but suppose we were to do this where we had okay, this should work. Suppose what if we had a multiplayer game, right?
Okay, sir.
Something like this, where we have two players. So by doing this get owning player pawn, it checks which of the two players it should affect the health bar form. Because now there are two players, so there'll be two HUDs. So this we only want the HUD to affect only the player who's gone over the fire and not the other players in the game.
Okay, sir.
So this is just a way to get reference to whose HUD are we affecting by doing this bit of code. So we're going to get a third person character, same thing, cast as before. And we're going to get health. And attach it here. Okay. So I'm going to change back to 1. Okay. So now you can see I have this health bar, which is 100. And doesn't seem to be affecting anything as we go into the fire. Let me just see why that is. Or maybe we have to divide it by 100. Yeah. So I had to divide it by 100 because the way that this bar works, it takes a percentage, and the percentage is between 0 and 1. So 1 being 100% and 0 being 0%. And our health is 100. So before we get the final health, I just have to divide it by 100. So I get the correct value in correlation to the health bar. So now when we go through the fire, we start incurring 10 damage. So if we go through the fire again, it starts increasing. So now that we have this simple setup, let's increase and put some more fire around the world. Okay, I'm going through the fire, receiving 10 damage. Going through the fire here, receiving 10 damage again. And 10 damage again. Okay, so now that we have this bar set up, let's also give it a simple text and call it health. Okay, so that it's constantly telling you how much health there is. And let's also do another interesting thing as put in a numerical value to the health. So I'm going to bring this text box again, a new text box, and name this 100. So this is showing me the current health. Now we can use the same bind function that we had done before. We're going to create a bind. Oops, I got a little too far. Do get owning player pawn and cast to third person. Basically just doing the same thing we did before, getting health and attaching it to this number. So now what's going to happen is, as and when we receive reduce health, this number is also going to start going down as this bar goes down. So let's take a look at that. So you can see health, I have 100. Now it's 90. We'll go through another piece of fire. 80. As you can see, the coins are also being collected. My health is also being updated. Okay, everything is working fine. Now let's see what happens if we go to 0 health. So now that we have 0 health, you see my health is starting to go even lower. It went to -20. We don't want that to happen. So just like how we made a condition to check if the coins collected are more equal to all the coins in the world, we're going to do a quick check for our health to see if our health has dropped down below 0 or not. So now that we've set the health after incurring the damage, we're going to, instead of using the greater than, we're going to use the less than or equal to node. And we're going to say, is the current health less than or equal to 0? And if it is, then we're going to choose end game. Now end game is the same function we used before to disable the input. So the idea is that when you start, you will not be able to move anymore if you lose all your health. Okay, let's see what that looks like. If I go into the fire, 90, go back into the fire, 80, 70. And so you can see I can no longer move. So this is what we want. Now all we need is, once you die in the game, instead of this you win, we want it to say you lose. So I'm just going to duplicate this guy and get it too close to where this you win was. Okay, just put it here for now. And instead of you win, I'll type you lose. Perfect. I'm going to put it on top essentially. And again, I'm going to go and make sure this is collapsed. And instead of winner 1, I'm going to name this loser. Okay. And back in our fire mode, in our fire blueprint, we're going to come to our third person character, pull out of here, get the HUD. And from the HUD, we're going to get loser. And we're going to set visibility to visible. So it's collapsed right now. If you see, oops, it should be collapsed. So that when you start the game, you don't see you win or you lose. But depending on if you win or lose, you're going to get a new. Okay. My HUD seems to have gone away. Oh. $20, $10, $0, you lose. Okay. Now that we have this, let's move both of these a little bit up. And we're going to now make a button. So let's bring this button in. From the left panel, I've just dragged and dropped it in. I'm going to make it slightly bigger. Okay. And I'm going to drag a piece of text and drop it into the button. Now this text is attached to the button. You can see in the hierarchy, I have button and text, and the text is attached to the button. So as I move the button, the text will also continue to move. So within the text, I'm just going to name this restart game. Okay. And I'm going to click on the button. And instead of using a bind this time, what we're going to use is this event. So on pressed or on clicked, we will want to restart the game. So instead of restarting the game, we're just going to do open level and tell it to open this third person example map. Third person example map. So this is the same map we're currently using here. So what it's going to do is just going to take this map and restart it. So, okay. So as you can see, when I press start, it's already showing up as restart game, but I cannot click it because I don't have a mouse or a cursor yet. So what I want to do is I'm going to go back to the designer, and here I'm going to choose, click on the button and choose collapsed again and compile. Now it shouldn't show up, which is perfect. And we're going to go to our third person character, and at our end game, we're going to drag a reference from our HUD, get the HUD, and we're going to do get button and set visibility. So now whenever the game is over, it's going to set the button to be visible. Once we do that, we're still going to have one problem though. So let's either try collecting all the coins. So right now, according to what we have done, either collecting all the coins or going through the fire and losing all our health is going to result in us getting the end game, restart game menu, which is what's happening now. But as you can see, I'm moving my mouse, but I can't see the cursor. So I'm not being able to press this restart game at all. That is because the way the engine is set up right now is that we don't need to see a cursor because we're using our player. But now that we have disabled all our input, we can now enable our mouse. So we're just going to get our player controller again, get player controller. And this is just getting the player controller, telling you that the person using the keyboard and mouse is the player controller. And we're going to do show mouse cursor. Set show mouse cursor, and we're going to enable this as true. Okay. Now let's see if that works. I'm going to go collect the coins. Six, seven, you win. And now you see my cursor has popped up. And now if I click restart game, I still can't do anything. Obviously, I've spelled restart game wrong. I'm gonna change that really quickly. Start game. Okay. So as you saw, I now was able to see the cursor, but I still couldn't click on the button. And why is that? The reason I couldn't click on the button is because we still haven't told the keyboard and mouse that you are no longer using the player. You are now going to be controlling the HUD. We haven't made that switch yet. We've only told it not to control the player. We need to tell it to now control the HUD as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag out of the HUD, and we're going to choose set input mode UI only. Just going to drag these wires so it look a little neater. Okay. And we're going to get a player controller. So now what's going to happen is it's going to recognize that once the game is over, I should be able to use my mouse and keyboard to interact with the UI. Collected. Okay, I can still not press the button. This is interesting. So let's do set input. The mode actor. Okay, so I'm still not being able to click on this button. We will take a look at why that is. All right. Okay, it seems like I can still move around in the space. That's not what I want. Okay. So while I debug that, let's quickly move on to one more aspect. Now that we have this fire setup, what's happening is that once we go through the fire once, it reduces our health only once. But if we're standing in the fire, it is no longer reducing any health. We want it so that if you stand in the fire, it starts reducing your health continuously. So we're going to set that up. Just to set it up, that is really simple. We're going to go back to our fire. And instead of using this logic to deal our damage, what we're going to do is we're going to get this other actor, and once we cast to our new player, I mean our third person player, we're going to just save a reference to it by promoting it to a variable. All I did was right click or drag out of here and promote to variable. So it creates me a new variable, and I'm going to name this as player. So this is so that we can remember who the player is. So I'm actually now going to disconnect this and bring all of this logic that I have from before and just move it all the way down and use the player reference that I have here. You can see it pop up in the variables panel at the bottom left. I'm going to pull this out and take all the references from here and move them into this guy and connect this here. So the idea now is that it's going to get the player and save the reference of the player into here. And the reason we're doing that is that once this happens, we're going to create a custom event and call it deal damage. And every time, so once you overlap the sphere, now we're going to call the same deal damage function. So it's essentially the same thing, only now we have the ability to deal this damage multiple times, more than just once. So the way to do that is we're going to do we're going to do timer, set timer by function name. What this does is it looks for a function, and we're going to name this function deal damage, which is the same as this function. And what it's going to do is we're going to choose amount of time, say 1 second, and make it looping. So now what's going to happen is once you enter this sphere, you're going to deal damage. So it's going to go here and deal the damage once. And then after it does this one time, it's going to do it every time for 1 second. So that if you're standing in this volume, every 1 second that you're standing, you're going to receive 10 more damage to yourself until you have no more damage left, or no more health left. But how do you tell it to stop? So to tell it to stop, we're going to choose this sphere again. And instead of doing begin overlap, this time we're going to do end overlap. And we're going to do the same thing. Cast to third person character. We're just going to copy paste this here. And other actor. And what we're going to do is clear timer by function name. And we're going to choose deal damage. So what has now happened is when we enter this sphere, it's going to check who has entered this sphere. And if it is the player, it's going to deal damage to that player. And by dealing damage, it's going to reduce the health by 10. And then once it's done that for the first time, it's going to check after 1 second. If he's still in this volume, he's going to incur 10 more damage. And once he leaves that volume, he's going to stop doing this deal damage function. Let's see if that works now. So I'm going to go into the fire. And as you see, my health is continuously going down now. But when I go out of the fire, it should stop. Again, we're going to go in and it's going to continuously deal damage to us. And we have lost. Okay, I just want to check with everyone, were you able to follow the damage setup that we have done currently? If people can respond in the chat, that would be great.
There is one announcement, students. I have shared one link in the chat box for the feedback of this workshop. So kindly fill this feedback form also and respond the queries, or if you want to ask any queries to the sir. So sir is waiting for you. You can write in the chat box also.
Okay. Okay, I guess if nobody has questions, I guess I'm just going to start wrapping up. I think I mostly covered everything we wanted to for today. If anyone has any questions, now would be a good time. Otherwise,
Any questions from student side? Any queries?
Sir, how to import
think-
3D models in it?
okay, that's a good question. To import a 3D model, I'm guessing you need to have either an OBJ file or an FPX file. It does take a lot of other file formats as well. If you have any specific file format, you can go ahead and ask me. But for the most part, you can you can import any sort of static meshes or textures or material to make materials. We didn't cover using textures to make materials, but the way to import is by just clicking this import button. Okay, and you can okay, let me just pull in something I have over here from my okay, so let me just bring in this stadium seat that I have. I'm just going to click import and it gives you a few options. For now, I don't need to worry about this. I'm just going to click import. And this is going to import my static mesh. So I've just put a seat with some random texture on top of it. So basically when you right click, you can import it from clicking here. Alternatively, you can also just simply drag and drop something into this and it'll try to import it if it can. And if you want to apply material to this guy, you have to just select this. At the bottom, you can see these. You can either drag and drop a material like this, or you can alternatively click on the material you want here and then ask it to select it, or search for the material here and select it.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Anyone else has any questions?
Any more questions, students? So I think nobody has any queries right now.
Yeah, I think so this was basically, just to give you an introduction of how quickly you can prototype stuff. I'm sure I went a little bit too fast for you to follow along, but I wanted to be able to show you as much functionality that you can do quickly in the engine as possible. Not necessarily keep this as a training session where you can, have something concretely prepared at the end of it, because time was not permitting of that. But I hope this was an eye opener for you guys at how it's possible to quickly, rapidly prototype something in Unreal Engine and build something without having any real coding knowledge or knowing any coding language, just by visual scripting and using simple variables and functions. You can achieve pretty quick results in terms of developing gameplay.
Yes, sir. It was a wonderful session. So I think I should conclude this session
Yeah.
if anybody has no questions. So before ending the session, I would like to thank Mr. Kabir Punde, sir, for giving his valuable time for 2 days and sparing or sharing the contents related to Unreal Game Engine. And I would like to thank all the audience to join the session. So have a great day. Goodbye.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Yeah. Bye, students. See you guys.
So students, kindly fill the feedback form before leaving the meeting.
Yeah, and also I'm just going to type in my contact information.
Sure, sir,
if
sure.
anyone wants to
Sure,
get
sure,
in
sir.
touch with me.
You can type in the chat box.
Yeah,
also.
yeah.
Sure, sir.
Yep. My email address and my phone numbers in there. If anyone wants to connect with me, feel free. I'd love to hear from you. I hope this session was beneficial. I hope to see you guys soon.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you a lot.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.